What's new with your business? How is that going? It seems like you're just booming and expanding, helping women.
Yeah. Thank you. So we have the man school, the woman school, and really my focus is women. And we also have a coaching. We have about 350 coaches, and it's a new, and we have kind of the wholeness coaching. But I've kind of pivoted the last 6 months into just really focusing on reclaiming womanhood.
Mm,
For such a time as this, basically kind of just, respecting everyone else and their journey, but also honoring the woman and their definition of what it means to be a woman. So that's really kind of women are kind of signing on behind that and say, listen, we just want our privacy, our respect. So that's really kind of, the mission. And I've done this for 25 years.
yeah,
And most of my training is just mindset and skill set. And
yeah,
it's kind of taken on a different brand right now in context of our current culture, but ultimately it's about training.
yeah.
So yeah, I think it's exploding, I think, for many reasons. So we're in 40 plus countries now.
Wow.
Yeah, that happened pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And we have thousands of students kind of all over. Um, I think women just want depth, and that's kind of what we offer. And so we want deep interior training. We want not just having freedom, but being interiorly free to choose our highest and best self. And I think what resonates for women today is that there's no training
Yeah.
on how to be a woman. And I'm not saying that from a political stand. I'm just saying how to make decisions, how to be a good friend, how to develop standards, how to find the right person in your life, or to say no. These foundational skills that are just you might think it's a personal development, but it's really not optional. And
Mm,
even then it's not, I think we have a lot of women's empowerment. And I always say it's not just about empowering women, it's really about equipping them
yeah.
with discipline, with character, with skills, which is what I teach. I teach hundreds of skills and scripts.
I
So
love that. And you've created your whole unique curriculum. You have your own,
yeah.
all that learning. You've
Yeah.
done all that, right?
Yeah, we have a whole curriculum. As a matter of fact, I'm refilming it for the third time. If you're open to being an affiliate, we
Yeah.
have a whole robust affiliate program, and I think that's what's spreading the mission.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, if you're open to that as well, and really just
Absolutely.
sharing, even for your work, like a lot of your story from our short conversation about
Yeah.
your story about alcoholism and not what you're doing that for good. So much of what I've realized is that a lot of us are wounded, whether it's alcoholism or maybe what I've been through, or a lot of women, we just had no skills
Yep.
to say no, to discover our dreams. So I think we have so much data that's saying, listen, empowerment's not enough.
Yeah.
We need tangible materials. So if that resonates with you, let me know.
Absolutely. No,
No,
I
I
love that. And I've also noticed a big shift, even just since when you and I met last year, the women in business became very big, and we're joining together. How do we better run our businesses? How do we rather do things? And it seems like there's sort of been a shift this year where we do run business differently than men. We
yeah,
do need to double down on our strengths and not
yeah.
try to run a business like a man, but run a business like a woman where we are leaning into our strengths, not their strengths. And people resonate with that.
So I think that's actually coming in more in focus
Yeah.
and in my study. And I think because we've kind of gone the radical extreme to like, I want equal freedom, which the feminist movement fought for. And now it's like, I want to take over men. It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
now it's like, and so it's kind of gone the radical extreme. And
Yes.
so our platform here, it's like we need to reclaim womanhood, not back to the 1800s, but also not
Yeah.
trying to be like a man. Like,
Yeah.
but honestly, kind of like we're different,
Yeah.
we're equal, but respect our differences and honor it, like I think there is that exactly what you're saying. It's like even this idea of boss lady, I'm seeing it kind of almost like, you know what? Maybe it's not trying to compete with men.
Yep.
It's really trying to collaborate with men. And so I think we're going to see more of that as our women are actually standing up for women's rights.
Yeah.
Like
I
the
agree.
right to be a woman, and I was just doing a reel on this. It's like, let's take all the good from the feminist movement, but let's leave out the garbage
Yeah.
that says, you can be a man and you don't need men.
Right.
And so
which
I
is going to in turn help them firmly be a man, because we're not trying to be that masculine person. We're
yeah.
leaning in on our strengths and letting them hold theirs.
Yeah, and so I think even the conversation of masculinity and femininity is almost kind of, in some ways, have convoluted because then women can be masculine and men can be, and I think it takes language is the battlefield of culture.
Mhm.
And so what I find is that so much of what I do, because we have a whole curriculum, is that we actually create a whole new language. And I don't actually, I try to avoid the masculine and feminine, even though I
Mhm.
know there's validity to it, only because I think it can get confusing.
Yep.
Men can be feminine, and it's like, no, just man, manhood and womanhood. And let's honor that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're spot on. So yeah, I think it's the most exciting time to be a woman, in my opinion.
I agree. I agree. And I think also it's because there's also a lot of support from one woman to the next. I
Yeah.
think we've gotten out of the competing against each other and more like realizing the strength and power in supporting and empowering one another and lifting each other up, which is huge. A lot of us, I know myself personally, grew up and I didn't even have women friends because they were doing girly stuff, and I was doing my thing, and girls, especially young girls, very catty, very shallow, very mean, very. There's just a lot of hurt, I think, that goes through with trusting women. But I do believe things have changed where I think a lot of women have come through the same thing. And now there's just this full support of one another.
I think we're tired of it. And honestly, even what you've mentioned, like, where do women learn not to gossip? Where do women learn not to be catty? Those are skills we teach. Like, I
Yeah,
don't, I have daughters, I have 8 children, and I have daughters, and I'm like, I don't expect them to know these things that we assume they know just because they're a woman.
right.
So I think that's what I think is really kind of revolutionary that's making us take off. It's like, listen, it's not your fault that you're suffering right now unnecessarily. It's just that you're unprepared.
Yeah, I
And we've
love
got to
that.
stop blaming ourselves for the choices. Really, no one, teaches how to make a great example. I always say it's like women are unhappy with their body,
Mm.
but where are we taught to um, study what we eat, what we don't eat, study our kitchen, not because we belong in the kitchen alone, but it's like, no, own your health, know
Yeah.
how to cook quickly, and it just, I think this is what I mean, like with the radical feminist movement, who's like, you can never be in your kitchen. I'm like, no, you should be in your kitchen so you can know what's in your food.
A
Not
hundred
because,
percent. Yeah.
yeah, not because, we retaliated so much from the woman that's from the 1800s, when we can take all the good from her. I want my freedom. I want my choice.
Yeah.
But also, like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be a man. So
Yeah.
that's why I think we can't go back. We have to kind of, this idea of reclaiming womanhood is taking everything from the history of women, including the radical, including feminism, and also leaving out some of the radical things that are violating, I think, the
Yeah.
biology of women, and just insanity of like women's bathroom right now. To me, I feel like I really just don't want you in my bathroom. Like, I'm sorry, I don't feel comfortable with men in my bathroom with my daughters.
It's the worst. I went to a concert, this was years ago. This was in Berkeley. It was like the Green Day, where they started their little club and venue. And so this was way before like we've gotten to the extreme that we have. And hard rock and all this. And I go in the bathroom and I come out and there's a guy right there. And I was like, this is like dangerous. Like I could literally be dragged into a stall, taken advantage of. Nobody would hear or see because we're in a large crowd venue, but
Uh,
because they're so concerned about being inclusive, they're actually endangering women
mm,
feeling safe in a bathroom where you should feel safe.
yeah, I just coined a new term, woman phobic. And it's exactly that. Like, I'm about ready to release it. It's like, for the sake of inclusion, we have
Yeah.
violated the right of women's safety.
Yeah.
Like, how do you deal with that in California, Angie? Like, I mean, I'm just curious.
Yeah. I mean, it's not everywhere. We just we do our best. Like I find the one that is women inclusive kind of thing. I travel a lot and I honestly don't go out a whole lot here in California. I go to Texas, I go to all these other places. But it's also probably appears a lot more extreme than it actually is. But
Right,
but
right.
it is real. It is here. It is probably, I mean, besides, I want to say like Seattle, besides Washington, one of the more extreme states for sure.
Yeah, that's what Minnesota, I heard, is even more extreme than California.
Wow.
Minneapolis, yeah, that's what our neighbor just moved in, and she's like, "I had to get
Yeah.
out, it was not, safe." That's what it is, it's a safety issue, so
Yeah.
but
Yeah. So,
exciting, I think it's an exciting time to be a woman, and that's where I think
yeah.
my passion and maybe, even our work, like, that is what you're doing, you're helping these men and women, obviously, but
Yeah.
they're undertrained, and I really think that's the way forward, it's like
Yeah.
we have to offer let's not wait for the 12 steps. Let's not wait for them to be catty. Let's not wait for them to be in drugs.
Yeah.
Look, I hear your story and um I mean, can you blame yourself if nobody ever showed you how?
Well, I mean, and unfortunately, the problem with the 12-step program is that it tolerates
Mm.
a almost victim mindset. This
Yes.
was done to me, this condition happened to me, this disease, and I don't believe in that because I think
Yeah.
as long as you're a victim of life circumstances, you're never going to be fully causative over being the cure for it either. So I don't prescribe to that
Love it.
philosophy completely because I'm more about like you, where let's empower women, let's empower men, let's empower people to
Yeah.
overcome whatever situations have occurred in their life to their fault or not.
Yeah.
But
Mm.
you have to know that
Responsible.
you can fix it. Something else isn't going to fix it, and you're not the victim of things.
We're on the same page and we sometimes I look at these college women and I'm like,
Uh,
"Oh my gosh, I mean, it's not even just women, but like the victimhood mentality. I mean,
yeah,
what's going to happen 20 years from now when they're going to raise a family or like, I don't know. Like,
right. And how
it's
are they
horrifying.
going to raise their children? It's But I mean, I guess that's why there's people like you doing what you're doing, people like me doing what I'm doing, so that we can
Yeah.
teach women by leading from the front of what a true empowered woman is, and the strengths that lie in that. And I love how you really focus on
Mm.
the different aspects: physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional. Like let's empower women in all four ways, because that's where the true power is. If you double down on one, like I'm just going to be super strong, odds are you're going to be like kind of insufficient in other areas, coping
Right.
with emotions and dealing with things like that. So it really is important to educate women on these are the areas that you really do
Yeah.
need to be all in on all of them in
Yeah.
order to be your best version.
Yeah. The integrated version. That's why we wholeness. And our wheel is actually
Okay.
eight parts. And what you said, mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual is actually it's all divided in four, but it's in health because what we're seeing is that women exercise all day, but they're mentally stressed and it doesn't work. It's not sustainable.
Yeah.
So we have talk about the self-image, we
Yep.
talk about friendship, intimacy, contribution, which is your career or your stay-home mom, in between your contribution to humanity, their environment, which we have to start thinking about the environment, the physical, and then we talk about wealth and family. So those are the eight parts that we really say, listen, all these need skills, all of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
And
Have you found that due to the past sort of programming, that women are less likely wanting to lean in on service because it feels more like they're, being a maid for people or just doing for people's? Like the view has shifted where I don't want to be of service because that means I'm just being a woman working for a man or whatever it is. Have you seen like a shift in that?
I do. I feel like I think it's rooted in the victim mentality again of um not really ownership of your call, your purpose, and your responsibility. And it's kind of this idea of it's like, well, I don't, I don't want to be a follower at all, or I don't anything that has anything to do with me developing sort of a sense of like every leader is a follower. So I do, and they suffer for it. It's
Yeah.
it's this entitlement mentality that we're really fighting for. And I love this quote, and it's like I'm sure you've heard of it. It's like, um, weak society creates strong men create strong society. I'm totally butchering it. I have it here.
It's okay. I'm the
Have
voice
you
of
heard of
reason.
that? Have you heard of
Yes.
that?
Yes.
Yeah, and great. And so we're really right now in a way, and I think the fourth one, right? It's such a powerful word, I should memorize it. But we have weak men and women, Angie. And what I mean by that is that we're fickle.
Yeah.
Like even the way we think about parenting, the helicopter parenting, that's like, we'll make sure we'll coax in their feelings. And I'm like, if I all day long, like tell my children, I have to validate their feelings, but I'm like, listen, you move through your emotions. I'm not gonna let you sit in that victim mentality. I'm like, we've got to flip this script, lady. Like
Mm.
we sometimes go in this extreme of just we want to make sure we are mindful of their feeling to a point where they literally neurologically wire victimhood without us knowing it. And part of that is because us parents also want to feel like we want to validate our value.
Yeah.
So making them feel good makes us feel good because we don't know our value. It's
Mm.
really generational. So if our children feel good about what we offer them, then we feel good about ourselves. Instead of being a parent,
Yeah.
instead of leading the charge, instead of me looking at my children and saying, no, no, thank you. You may not treat me that way. You may not speak that way. And no, you may not wallow in your own misery because if I teach you that, you are going to suffer.
Yeah.
And I really do. I'm like, I am obligated to help you be in command of your emotion and to teach you to flip your script. I can't let you sit in that. I'm like, listen, let's sit in misery, own our emotion, but then we move through pain,
Yep.
And so, and a lot of times where we have a culture who's kind of pain averse, like,
Very.
anything that to do. And I grew up in the Philippines. The first 11 years, pain was part of poverty.
Yep.
I didn't see my parents for 5 years. And I think that we have to embrace the purpose of suffering. Like personal development is about, we don't sell it as suffering, but it sure is.
Yeah.
Like getting up in the morning, saying no to yourself. It's a form of, suffering to deny yourself. And so the idea of do whatever feels good without consequence of life. I mean, there's
Yeah.
anxiety and they have no concept of this idea of purpose and responsibility because it's just about what they feel and what they think, and it's just fickle.
Well, and it's also become so socially accepted. I mean, even just in the last few years, we track our clients from the day they come in and we do very extensive tests because we check them when they come in, when they leave, that
Mhm.
sort of thing throughout their program. The vast majority all have anxiety and depression. And now the big uptick is everybody has PTSD. Like everybody is self-diagnosing or they have doctors diagnosing. Everybody has PTSD. And it's like, well, back in our day, you got PTSD from going to war and seeing people dying. Like that's where you got like that sort of, I mean, we all have trauma. I'm not negating that. We all have trauma. But to raise it to the level that it's become, where now everybody just identifies with these emotions, like you said, it keeps you in this sort of victim thing because they like very much having this, label them. It's comfortable, it's safe, and it's almost just a way out of anything and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's because of my anxiety. Sorry, I can't do that, or I can't be accountable or responsible for that because of my condition. And it's like, that's what we're up against as well, which is
Mhm.
crazy because they have doctors. I mean, you can get diagnosed on an app that you download in your phone 2 seconds and have
Unbelievable.
meds sent to
Really?
your house.
What?
Yes. It's crazy. It's crazy how easy it is. And you watch enough commercials, you know exactly all the things to say. Oh, yeah, sometimes I don't feel like getting up. Oh, you're right. Sometimes in a group, I do feel a little nervous, and the doctor will agree. You're right. You have this disorder, that disorder. Here's your medication. It's coming in the mail.
But you have to wonder, does the doctor have no command also of their own ability to manage their mind and emotion? Because they obviously can't, like they're diagnosing these people in context probably of their own capacity as well. We've lowered the bar so much of what's hard. That's what I mean. I mean,
Right.
it is kind of insane, and that's why I think like something's got to shift,
Yeah.
and I think that's I think where we are in history right now. It's like we can't go just spiraling and everybody is PTSD and everybody is anxiety. And that's why I feel like if we don't train men and women, nothing is going to change. It has to be a grassroots movement of personal development, not just like this is a personal development world.
Yeah.
Like no, like every man and every woman needs to kind of have the tools of how do you process your thought? How do you have emotional command? How do you say no to yourself? How do you make decisions? We make 35,000 decisions a day.
Mm.
And there's no decision making skills in our 2 decades of education. There's no planning skills. A lot of anxiety happens because people don't have a plan forward. They can't see it. It's like excessive worry of a future they have no path to actually achieve.
Mm.
So literally, like they have no skill to say, let me work backwards from this dream, from this purpose, from this desire. And so they're just ruminating it. And
Yeah.
so And, I don't know if you follow Joe Dispenza or
Oh,
Dr.
yeah.
Joseph or Dr. Carolyn Leaf. It becomes so habitual. Their body knows it before their mind. And that really hit me how neurologically wired our patterns are of anxiety, of stress, that for decades nobody equipped us.
Yeah.
Like let me give you an example. Like my daughter, I'm very mindful about the words that they use. There's illegal words in my house and they know it. They're not allowed to use it. They'll write scripts over and over because I'm like, I know you don't like it, but this is rewiring your brain. I'm a tough mama. And
I love
so
that.
sometimes they'll come in and they'll be like my daughter the other day, and she's 13, she understands. We have command of our emotion, we manage our words, our thoughts, and she's like, Mom, 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 Mom. And I was like, please pause. You are right now acting in response in a very kind of panic way. You're not going to wire that in your system. She's like, oh yeah, Mom, I am totally in emotional command. I was just late and I didn't manage my routine well. And so I'm rushing. I said, you figure it out, but you may not wire that in my household. I am not raising kids who's anxious because they're late. Take responsibility, you're late, figure out a solution, but you're not, okay. I'm like, no, 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 thank you. But
I
if a
love
mom
that.
is anxious herself and
Yes.
she's frantic, she will not have the capacity
Oh,
in
no.
that moment to hold her daughter accountable to a higher standard of movement where she can say, no, you may recalibrate your thoughts, figure out a solution, but you're not frantic about this. It's just you're late. 5 minutes. You're gonna make mistakes.
Yep.
You
And by the
know,
way, I'm not going to come in and fix it for you.
no, I'm not. That's what I told her. I was like, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna come in and fix it
Which
for
I
you.
think a lot of us have got in that habit of, it's okay. I understand you're busy. Here, let me fix it for you. I know I definitely did growing up a latchkey kid where I did everything for myself. I slid that pendulum the other way when it came to my kids because that was so hard in my memory that I was like, oh no, I see you doing this. Let me help you. Let me help you. But then we're making them, like you said, weak and unprepared for the world because once they leave our house, we're not there taking care of everything. Or we
Yeah.
are, but now we're doing it remotely. Like, what can I fix for you? What do I need?
Yeah. But once again, like who taught you to do that?
Yeah.
Like I had to figure out my own childhood. It's not like I was trained. I figured out by failure.
Yeah.
And so that's what I mean is that you were unprepared. So you swung the other way,
Yeah.
right? And most of us swing the other way because of pain,
Yeah.
but I think that's why there needs to be an infrastructure change of training, because I mean, postpartum is an all-time high, not just depression. Who teaches mothers?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, honestly, to be in command of your emotion, your hormones are, up and down, but your mind is stronger than your hormones. And that's why I think we are, we've got to train men and women and before they fall, like, so I'm passionate about it. I'm like,
Yeah.
I think we've seen data and there's data now, at least for women, that they just did a study in Yale that in spite of all the freedom we have in the West, women are unhappy, unsatisfied with their life.
Yeah.
So now we can say with, a good amount of data that says, okay, we can vote, we can choose, we have all this freedom. What's amiss?
Yeah.
And I think that's this exciting part because radical to extreme thinking of I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, with it, whenever I feel like, with no recount of accountability, from no freedom. And we're saying, you know what? It's freedom rooted in responsibility
Yeah.
and accountability. And I think what we call in the women's school, we're no longer just fighting for exterior freedom, but interior freedom. And that's what Viktor Frankl says, the freedom to choose your highest and best self, even at the worst circumstances around you. And I think ultimately that's what we have to fight. This is the new movement of women, I think,
Yeah.
where we want interior freedom, that no matter what happens around us, interiorly, we become a pillar for humanity because we know how to choose our highest and best self.
I love that. Well, and again, part of that battle is as a woman or a man, anytime you go to a professional, their solution, as opposed to, like you said, feeling it, going through it, experiencing it, and moving to the other side, is let's just medicate you. You're right. That's a terrible feeling. Let's just, even, especially after you've had a baby, especially, when your hormones are crazy, the solution is always the pill, the pill, the pill. Let's fix this, fix this, fix this. But it's not fixing it. It's just band-aiding it, and it's blocking you off from your emotions and healing because you're not just sitting with it, which, yeah, it sucks. I mean, I give myself, I think my big word this last year has been grace, because shit's been hard, and then I just allow myself to sit in it, and I end up getting myself through it because I look past the, okay, this sucks, but remember when you did that, and remember when you did that, okay, yeah, you're right, this is not great, but I will get through this.
Wow.
But a lot of people don't have, like you said, the skills or training to get themselves through it. They're looking for external stuff to help them or make it okay or fix it.
Yeah, no, and part of it is a mindset because what we teach in our women's school is both mindset and skill set. So let me just give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
We are afraid of pain, right? Naturally, our brain, literally, our reptilian brain is afraid to feel, right? We choose comfort. But what if we replace that limiting belief that pain is redemptive?
Mm.
That pain is where you harvest the greatest wisdom that you cannot learn in moments where there isn't equal pain, right? The wisdom that you get in the suffering is inevitably a more powerful wisdom that I think we can harvest from. So, what am
Yeah,
I saying to you? That you work through that. What if we shifted the mindset that pain is not to be feared, rather, pain is to be worked through because it has redemptive power in our life?
yeah,
Can you imagine how that
awesome.
would switch doctors? Because pain is inevitable.
Yeah,
You're enduring it. I go through it. I'm not free of it,
yep,
and I think that's what I mean when I say there needs to be sort of a really big, huge movement that begins with a shift of language that builds a training that gets women and men. I always say women because I teach women, but
yeah,
really it's both men and women to kind of say, wait a minute, we need to reassess the relationship we have with fear, with pain, with failure, with perfection, and create a new language that no longer serves the things that we don't want
yeah. I love
and
that.
and rebuild a culture that is really that values the whole person, Angie. Like that I think is part of the issue. It's like, what are women valued for today? We call it poisonous P in our school. Power, possession, position, perfection, your popularity. It poisons our unconditional worth. Is that really what makes a woman valuable? No. This is why women are binging or, to try to be thin, eating disorder. They're numbing themselves because they think that all these things are chasing really perfection or power or position for a shot of being valuable.
Mm.
I mean, but they don't have language for it. They're not sitting being like, I'm trying to get as many people in Instagram followers because I really want to be valuable. They're just literally carrying the pain without the diagnosis of understanding that, oh, I'm trying to prove myself.
Yeah,
The first work that we do in the women's school, because we've got a 16-week course and really it's a foundation of how to be a woman in context of a modern culture, is that you have to rewire your worth. It's not for sale. Like your A does not make you less valuable, but we might think that. Our daughters might think that because that's what we've conditioned them to believe. Your trophy, your popularity, your body
your
does not change
likes,
your value.
your thumbs up, your like
Yes.
followers. Yeah,
Yeah. And it becomes so neurologically wired, like Dr. Joe Dispenza, that it's so habitual. Then you do the same thing with your boss.
yeah.
You're proving yourself to your boss, you're proving yourself to your children, you're proving yourself to your boyfriend. And it's so hardwired now that we don't even know why we're anxious, why we're suffering, but we're living life where our worth is always on the line.
Mm.
But you tell me, is every human being valuable and equally valuable? Yes. We need to start neurologically wiring that in our 95% of our brain. Otherwise, women are going to continue to fall short. They're going to continue to suffer because they don't know what's causing their suffering, number one, and they have to believe that they're valuable. This idea of like, oh, you're enough. No, they're valuable as is.
Yeah,
That
but
my
that takes
achievements don't make me more
trust.
important than you. Yeah, it takes work, I think. It
It
takes,
takes work and it takes consistency. Like I
yeah,
see like where, and it's not just women, women and men fall short is they have no confidence because they don't hold themselves accountable. I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week. Oh, the traffic and this, that, that's fine. You're going to have some grace. And then they start to lose trust in themselves. And then they
right.
lose confidence in themselves because they're not even being true to themselves. How are they going to be true and there for anybody else? So it's
Right.
almost like you've got to like strip all that away and start from the beginning of building the trust, which is what gives you your self-worth and your value, because now
Yeah.
you trust yourself because when you say you're going to do it, you do it. You say you're not going to do it, you don't do it. And you start to like, even just the littlest things create that consistency with
Yeah.
yourself, which creates the confidence.
Yeah. Well, it's really the little things. And in the women's school, we define confidence as competence.
Mm,
So even the ability to honor your word is a skill that builds competence over time, that builds confidence. Like women don't know how to honor their word. I mean, look at social media. We have no
Yeah.
accountability for the words that we say. I mean, so much, I run a controversial platform and I tell men and women all the time, we don't have to have um, the same views for you to speak to me in a manner that's honorable and respectful. Like, lead with your character. Don't lead with a curse word. Like, we have no sense even of our language, of reverence, of honoring our word. Forget honoring our word, just actually using words that bring reverence to what it means to be human. I mean, there's no accountability. We can say whatever we feel like saying.
Yeah.
And if you pointed out, it's really funny. I've kind of doing my own test because sometimes people will say, mean things. And I said, I said, I don't, I always say, I'm like, your opinion is your opinion and I respect it. Is there a way for you to speak with a level and a standard where your character is above that we can hold a standard of a level of character? And most of the time, women and men are like, they kind of get shocked about the fact that, wait, my character, like they've never thought about it.
Wow.
Like, like you put that on the line. And I think that's my point is like, we
Yeah.
have to start bringing reverence back in our language. It's like, listen, character, let's bring that right back in. Integrity, those lost words
Yep.
that used to be part of the foundation of conversation. Like we didn't have hundreds of pages of contract. Why? Because you were just a man of your word.
Yep.
Like honesty was just the best policy. Looking people in the eye was all these are skills.
Yeah.
Angie, like, and I'll tell you, like, if you're not reinforcing it, like with my kids, it's like white on rice. It's like we look people in the eye. We greet when we see people, like basic, so basic. Like you go to any, school to the elementary school, everybody's looking down. They're not on the phone. They don't know how to say hello. There's no basic conversation skills. Like I have to like give my children flashcards of saying, this is your transitional conversation. Hello, how are you? What was it like to visit? I'm like, you are not graduating from my house without basic conversation skills that's really going to make you more, not suffer in life. I'm like, I tell them, I'm like, listen, this is not my life. This is this is your life. You're going to suffer. I'm like, fine, you don't take it, but you're going to suffer and it's your life. I have 2 years with you, 4 years, whatever. I'm like, but make no mistake, you will not get what it is that what you want.
Mhm.
And I don't like, it's not, I don't threaten them. We have a great relationship with my kids, but I'm like, I'm not putting up with this nonsense. And I
Yeah.
think parents need to start kind of like what you're doing. It's not the 12 step, you're a victim. It's like, no, stop it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And let's be grown men and women and adult and just take like fierce responsibility. And it's like, great, you made a mistake.
Yeah.
Own up to it.
Yeah. I love that. Communication is so big. It's one of the things we teach in our program because people don't know how to listen anymore, right? They're just like waiting for you to finish so they can just give their
Opinions.
slant or me and get this with me. And it's like you said, it's a lost art of just listening and acknowledging and holding space for somebody and being like, okay, I'm not here to fix your problem. I'm just here to listen, but I'm here to acknowledge you. And it's at this point in time not about me. It is about you. And that's what you need from me. And like, for former addicts and alcoholics, you've got to be able to be clear with boundaries. Like you've got to say, hey, you know what? That's not okay for me. And you've got to be able to clearly communicate that. So it's not a like, you suck. That's why I can't be around you. It's got to come from a place of like, I can't be around this because it end up feeling a certain way. But it's just like, again, it's the basic, it's communication, it's the words. And we're not taught and they don't know how to naturally just do this. And it's up to people like you to educate good communication words, like the little
Well,
things.
but you would be surprised though. It sounds so elementary,
Yeah.
but honestly, we're kind of in this point where we need to reteach common sense,
Yeah.
longer common practice. And we have thousands of scripts in our school, like thousands, and it sounds so silly, but we are here.
Yeah.
Like exactly what you said. Like, we don't know how to do that. And I'm not talking about like 20-year-olds. I'm talking about 50-year-olds.
Yeah.
60-year-olds. I think we've sort of become a victim in the last 50 years without the language of like, we are kind of all suffering. I mean, think about midlife crisis, which is a new phenomenon. Um, it was something that kind of people didn't happen, but now people have no purpose. They don't know how to process what they want and don't want.
Yeah.
There's no vision. Like, dreaming is a skill that we teach. Without
Mm.
a vision, you perish. And most people are like, "What is your dream?" You're like, "That's childish," or "That's not really an important conversation." I'm like, if you have no hope that things could be better, how do you live? How do you wake up every day?
Yeah.
Like, people need hope.
They don't. They literally 9 to 5, go home, make food, watch TV, go to bed, 9 to
No,
5. Weekends, maybe I'll clean
no,
my house. There's no hope, fun, purpose for a lot of people. It's just mundane.
there's no adventure. And so that's what I mean. I'm like, this is so sad. But one of the first exercises we do in our interview process with the school is, what do you want and don't want?
Mm.
And then we go through the woman in every year, their self-image, their friendship, their intimacy. And I cannot tell you, that invokes the fight freeze mentality. Some
Mm.
women, they're like, I've never been asked this question. I have no idea what to think. Like, it's a muscle that they have not used, or has been, maybe when they're little, they were never told, like, what do you want? What do you not want? Do you want blue cup, the red cup? They were just told what to do, and they've conditioned someone that to ask what they want, they have it's like an atrophy muscle.
Yeah.
Or they'll just start crying, or they'll be angry and they want to fight you. They're like, it's not important. Like, it's not about what you want. You've got to just be practical. And it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I have to really work them through. I said, listen, permission to just go dig deep in your heart. Let's consider, actually, I tell them, let's just live in your imagination for just a hot second.
Mm.
And let's give ourselves permission to even think that what we wanted and didn't want actually mattered. And it's like floodgates come down. I mean, I'm so passionate about helping women because I'm in the front lines of the wounds. Like, I see the anger, the bitterness, the tears, the discontent, the resignation,
Yep.
the
The negative
numbing.
self-talk, that
I
one's
mean,
huge.
it's huge, but not only that, it's generational now.
Yeah.